Good evening, everybody. This is the June 13th subcommittee meeting of Ways and Means. Will all please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a reminder, staff, please speak directly into this microphone, not to the side, but directly into it, or else it doesn't really. Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Roll call of the members of the Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councilor Janino.
Here.
Here. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morbido.
Here.
Here. Councilor Patch is absent. Councilor Zambudo.
Here.
Here. Councilor Guanasso.
Here.
Here. And Chairman Rizzo.
Here.
Here. A quorum is present.
Thank you very much. Councilor McKenna and Councilor Patch had both called, and unfortunately, both of them are not feeling well, so we wish them the best, and just want to acknowledge them, obviously wish them well. So we have, this will be the third public hearing that we're having with respect to the FY20 budget. We can see the calendar that's here, and I know that there, everybody wants to go first, and unfortunately I can't have everybody go first. I did receive one call. He's probably not going to be accepted very well tomorrow when he comes in, but he did ask me if he could go first because he had a prior commitment, and that would be Nick Rystrom. So with the exception of Nick Rystrom, I really have to go through the order that's here because it will be unfair to other people. Like I say, he contacted me about a week ago and said he had a special set of circumstances. So with that, I am going to adhere to the schedule that's here. Before I do go, I know some of my colleagues may be coming later. Some of us got here, but I just want to wish the Jack Satter House a happy 41st anniversary. They're celebrating. It's hard to believe that building's been down there on the beach for 41 years, for those of us that can remember it not being there. But I want to wish them happy anniversary, and I'm glad we had the chance to go down and wish them well. So with that, I'd like to, so I don't keep you guys any later than I have to, these have been moving along pretty quickly. I'd like to call up the engineering department, Nick Rystrom. I don't think he's going to take all that long anyway. For the edification of the council, it's under section 2, page 89. Nick, what I've been asking department heads to do, if you want, we have the budget, so you don't necessarily need to do it. But if you want to just talk a little bit about 2019 and what you might look forward to in 2020, and then we'll get into the numbers. And then if any councilors have questions, we'll absolutely allow the councilors some time to go through your budget if there are questions. So with that, Nick.
Thank you,
Rystrom.
Mr. Chairman. So 2019. Similar to a lot of the years prior, for the engineering department has included a lot of work with DPW and infrastructure, but a lot primarily related to consent decree compliance, and then also some of the new regulatory MS4 permit compliance, and then also addressing local issues from residents with regard to sometimes sump pumps and sidewalks and a whole host of other things. On top of that, and we're trying to sort of modernize and digitize all of the archives that we have. It's sort of a slow process only because we don't have a huge staff to be able to go through all the plans and documents that we have and get them cataloged as quickly as we'd like. But we're making steady progress with that as well. As I said, a lot of it, and I think a lot of the council members here are familiar with a lot of the work related to the consent decree work. And that includes a lot of sewer rehab, and includes a lot of drain, stormwater system installation, and then what we've been doing also over the last year or so is work with lead service replacement, and then again, another big one is, I mentioned earlier, sump pumps, sump pump redirection. Really, it's sort of a continuation from the last fiscal year, and then, 2020, I envision would be similar, with some differences in quantities of different types of work happening. We do have a little bit more water improvement work coming up this year than we had in the past fiscal year, so that's a little bit of a change. But as far as some of the other stuff, it's relatively similar.
Okay, great. So we'll move right on to page 92, and then on to page 93. Obviously, it's a pretty straightforward budget, but if you just want to run us through the numbers real quick, you don't have to go through every single thing here, but if you could point out any changes for the members of the committee and the council, that would be great. And then we'll open it up to questions.
Sure. So this past fiscal year, I did acquire a principal clerk, so you'll see that on page 93. And what I have been trying also to do is locate a project manager. My previous project manager, as you know, Don Charmella, has taken on a different role in the DBW, and so I've been trying to fill that position, which is, you'll see also there. That has been proven to be very difficult in terms of the quality of applicants that we've received, and then also their availability, as we have found, here are the ones that actually are qualified. So I'm hoping to continue to fill that position as soon as possible. It is something that would be very advantageous to my department, obviously. And then the only other salary there that you see on 93 is mine. And that, you can see, is a bit of an increase, which has gotten me up to comparable to other cities and towns that employ city engineers, town engineers, or somebody around that same title. So that's really all there is as far as the salaries go. I can run through, if you like, the operations part of things, if you want.
I don't know, why don't we hold off at that point, and I'll open it up to questions from council. Is there any councilors have any questions for Nick Rystrom?
Just any general question?
Well, while he's here, why not?
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Council Morabito.
Is Street Scan, the program Street Scan, is that live right now? Is that available for the public to view? Is that set up?
So the information is available, yes.
It is.
There isn't a separate login for individuals, but
Okay.
it's available. And we also incorporate the information into the GIS, so it's available for consumption there as well.
I just think that program is going to be so useful. It's one of the, I think it's one of the best items in this budget that we're investing in, because any resident will be able to go online, look at a street, see how much was spent on it, when it was last paved. This way, it eliminates the old school way of, hey, my street's getting done because I know someone. Everyone will have total transparency to that tool, so I think that's excellent for the residents. It's a great investment.
I agree. I think it's excellent to be able to provide people with a basis for, prioritizing the pavement going forward.
Thank you very much, Councilor Morabito. Councilor Zambuto?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm shocked that anybody would have that kind of an idea that you would get something done because you knew somebody. But are you replacing, or are you filling the? You said that you were trying to do the work of Dawn.
So previously, Don was in my department as a project manager.
Right.
He has obviously.
I know
moved
that.
on, and so that position is vacant.
It's
So I'm
vacant.
trying to fill it.
Okay, yeah, I was hoping that you were going to fill it. I just, when I heard you say that you were trying to do both jobs, you got a big enough job yourself. You obviously can't do anything, you can't do another position. You can't be a project manager and the city engineer, I don't think. It's a monumental task, so I hope we can fill that right away. I'm sure there's plenty of qualified people, probably Revere residents, that are looking for a nice position like that.
I hope you're correct.
I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambudo. Council President Quinasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My thoughts on street scan was always that it's a tool that the administration and members of the department, such as yours, review the need for repair in a particular street. And so the program would work that the most needed streets and sidewalks within the city would be attended to first. Is that correct?
Right, so it basically assigns a ranking, if you will, to the pavement condition. It's called a pavement index, and it assigns a number to the condition of the pavement on any given street, and then you can compare that index number to, between streets. So you can say, if one street has a higher than another street, then you know that it's in more need of repair, or vice versa.
And we always fulfill that process? That's what we do?
That's the goal, yeah.
As a rule? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Council President Quinasso. I don't have any questions pertaining to the budget. There's 3 salaries, some contracted services, so don't have any specific questions. But the question I have, we talked about a lot of the work that you do involves or surrounds the consent decree that we're under. And I know that we had worked very hard back several years ago to extend the number of years, which, as you know, was originally signed with the Department of Justice for, I think, 10 years initially.
2022.
Say that again?
2022.
2022, right. So has that, I know we were making some great progress with the Department of Justice, with our partners in federal government and our congressional delegation and, EPA, DEP. Has there been anything formally that has extended that consent decree at all?
So there hasn't been anything, so it's basically in principle. So we've met with the regulators. There was some delay because of some of the issues with the federal government and the EPA not working for a span of time. And then they had a turnover of some of the lawyers involved with the EPA and the Department of Justice. But we had met with them. We have an agreement in principle. Our council has drafted an amendment that has been presented to them, which is under review, basically, with them. And so the next step, I think, is to follow up with the regulators and have a formal setting happen so that the consent decree can be in a court of law amended appropriately. And at that point, it'll be in stone that what we have all agreed to in principle is what's going to happen going forward. And so I'm expecting that to be...
Do we know what the extended terms are?
So it's basically, we're looking at doing 5-year pieces of work where we commit to doing work over a 5-year span, and then we evaluate that, and then we make some decisions about how we're going to go forward with the next 5 years. And then at some point, as we're working with back and forth with the regulators, somewhere along there will become a point where we will have met all of our obligations, and it'll have to become an agreement. And also, I think it needs to go back to federal court. Also to then, I'm not sure what the right word is, but to, close, or whatever the word is, to close the consent decree. But the idea is to look at it, to do work in 5-year spans, look at what we did over those 5 years, adjust our approach for the next 5 years, execute that, and then look at it again.
Right, well, obviously, the goal was, and still continues to be, to lighten the load as to what the city has to do. Right. We're authorizing all these bond authorizations for CDM Smith, $7 million, $8 million, $5 million every single year. Right. And I know that work needs to get done. We have an antiquated infrastructure system, and the work, hopefully, over time, is gonna be paying dividends. I'm sure it's already paying dividends in a lot of ways, but, you know, the burden on the ratepayer just continues to grow, and, you know, to extend those terms out is going to be helpful, so we don't have to do as much work every year, because like everything else, it comes down to money. And, you know, when the federal government tells you up front you've got 10 years to spend, at that time, I think it was 50 million, we've quickly realized it was more like 100 million, I don't know where it's at now. But, you know, the more we can extend these terms, I remember when I first came back to the city council, back in January of, I guess, 2018, I had a meeting, or I had a conversation, I should say, with CDM Smith, and they were, you know, saying, look, this looks very good, and our terms are going to be able to be extended, and we're having but that was 18 months ago. So I just, you know, it seems like it's just dragging on throughout the whole period of time that we were making, it seemed to me, significant progress. So I haven't really looked back. I'm sure that I will, and see what we've had to spend each year on, you know, these bonds that we're putting out so that CDM Smith can get their work done, you know, but again, it's a big pill to swallow for so many ratepayers throughout the city, and I'd like to have something formal that we, like you said, in stone, have it, you know, that we can, you know, sleep better at night knowing that the DOJ is not going to be down our throats again. So, you know, because of course we don't want to be, I mean, you know, a lot of bad things can happen, you know, holding back federal funds or whatever it is that we're going to wind up, you know, paying that penalty on. So, okay, well, thank you for that explanation. We'll look forward to something more formal coming up. If there's no further questions for Nick Rystrom, Nick, thank you for your appearance. We'll look through your budget, and of course, Monday night, we're going to be voting on it, so.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Next up is inspectional services. First up, building department, page 115 in section 2.
Hi, Chairman. Benedict Cristoforo.
Yep. Similar to Nick Rystrom, if you want to just run through, you don't have to, but if you want to talk about some things going on in the building department, and then we can get right into the numbers, you know.
Some of the goals of 2020 would be e-permitting. Kind of, right now, we created the new e-permitting system. We're trying to enhance that a little better and to work out the bugs. Beyond that is digitizing a lot of the documentation, like the engineering department. If we can digitize everything and get rid of paper, move away from that. Beyond that, it's customer service, dealing with the public effectively.
Okay. Okay, great, great. Is anybody, if you want to turn to page 117, under performance measures, are there any questions regarding that for the building inspector? Or if there's anything, Benny, that you want to run through, feel free.
I could discuss some of the new positions that we're proposing.
Okay. Okay.
We're proposing a clerk one, who basically would be handling the e-permitting to the capacity. They would be managing that so we can be more efficient in analyzing what's coming in and helping the applicant work through the process a lot smoother and quicker. We are also trying to add a general counsel who will be a legal assistant to the building department and municipal inspections, who I think would be very valuable.
So I'm looking on page 119. I see building general counsel.
Yep.
And it says new position, no. So that's an existing employee?
No, you're talking building general counsel?
Yes.
That is new. That's a new proposal.
No, so it's asking like new position, and it's saying no here. So is there a reason why that would say no, or?
Right now, it's being filled by an existing employee that moved from the solicitor's office, so
So are we not backfilling that job in the solicitor's office?
We backfilled it with a paralegal clerk, and that's where we indicated the new job.
And did that, the new job was under the city solicitor's budget? There was a new position there?
I'll have to check. I believe so, but hold on, I'll check.
Okay. While he's checking, Benny, you can go
Yeah,
ahead. I don't
and
want
We're
to.
also adding a sanitary inspector, just to keep up with the demands of 311 and the needs of the sanitary code.
Non-payroll expenditures look roughly the same.
My apologies, that wasn't indicated on the solicitor, so on this sheet, it should have been indicated as a yes. I think it was just a transposition error with the existing position, because
Okay.
it's someone currently on staff, so
So-
we'll make that update.
Would you mind sending an email to everybody on the committee to
Yeah, I'll
indicate
update the
that?
form, and I'll put it in Monday's package.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the building inspector? Okay, Council President Guanasso, then Council Morbido.
Benny, have you ever thought, through you, Mr. Chairman, have you ever thought of hiring an on-call inspector for Friday at 12:15 through Saturday night?
So, council, that's a very good question. So in just hearing what the council had asked for in the past, we are adding this new sanitary inspector who will be working Saturdays.
And will each and every one of us have a number to contact right away, so we don't have to go through, we can have a cell phone, contact that person right
We
away?
haven't thought on those lines, but we might be able to work it maybe through 311. I'm not quite sure how we could work that, but it's something to absolutely think about.
Yeah, the cities, it seems like the hammers and the ladders come out 12:15 like clockwork, and they've been doing this for 100 years.
Yeah.
So it's got to stop, because
Yeah.
it's really not fair for law-abiding citizens who take out a permit and do it during the proper times.
Right, right now, what we're doing is relying, if someone does see something, they can call the police and maybe file a complaint that way. I don't know if that's efficient.
I know, but it doesn't seem to work, because the
I
police
agree.
don't really
I
feel it's a
agree.
criminal matter.
I agree.
And they don't put, their effort into it.
I agree.
As much as we would put the effort into it, because we know it's a violation of what we're supposed to do here.
I agree. And that's the reason why we are trying to put that new inspector. They are going to carry a Saturday.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Benny.
welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council Morbido.
Thank you. My question was similar. It was basically redundant, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So that's a part-time position. I was going to ask what hours they will be working, because I was going to recommend that they work weekends, so. But he answered you already
Well,
answered
that's a
that.
full-time
Yeah.
position, Council.
It
The
says,
sanitary inspector, it's the
The
last
sa-
line item.
oh, okay, I'm looking at okay. I see that, okay.
We're not quite sure on what the days are going to be, but it's going to absolutely include a Saturday.
Excellent. What about Sunday?
Sunday's a little harder to fill, as far as someone working there. We are considering maybe having someone on call, but that may be in the future.
Because my recommendation would be to have someone take the position knowing they're going to work Saturdays and Sundays, but it has already been filled, or no?
No, it has not
It
been.
has
No.
not?
No,
Okay.
there have been interviews, though.
There has been
And
interviews.
obviously, depending on.
So
on how
has
the
the
budget
roles and
goes.
responsibilities already been written by HR, I wonder?
Yes.
So
yes. Job
does
description has been written.
does it mention weekend hours?
It mentioned Saturday.
Okay, because I would highly recommend that we do Sundays as well, because I concur with my colleague to the left of me that there's a lot of ongoings on the weekend with constructions, and it will relieve the headaches in the building department and for us, because they'll be your eyes and your ears, and they'll be able to be on call when one of us calls and be like, hey, there's some kind of suspicion going on at this property, some kind of illegal activity, can you check it out?
Yep.
Because if they work on Saturdays, word gets around fast. They're going to start their work on Sundays. So the people who are doing this, they're not dumb. They're doing the construction knowing what the availability is and when city workers are present or not.
Point well taken, we'll consider that. I'll try to somehow fit that in the future.
Okay, any other questions, Councilor Zambudo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy about these new positions. They're certainly needed, especially this weekend person to stop some of this stuff. I get a lot of calls on it, and I have to, in defense of the police, I have to say they do stop them from working.
They do.
So, you know, it's not an ideal situation. However, they've been very helpful on the instances that I've contacted them. But this is something we should have done years ago. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. We won't go what we should have done. But this will make a big difference, and it'll bring in a lot of revenue. But more importantly, it'll send a message that we're not open for scammers on weekends, and that's what the message is right now. You go and you tell the people you'll take $200 off the job because you're going to do it on weekends, and then want cash and all this other crap that they do. And you know, there's a lot of people out there that are taking advantage of the city, and this is a way to stop most of it. And just the fact knowing that we have a weekend inspector is going to keep these people away.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great investment, and I think it's also going to help us keep up with the demand of the 311 calls and the code issues.
Absolutely. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any other questions from councilors? I have a couple, I actually have a question and then a comment, or maybe they'll turn into two questions. But if we could just go back to page 118, I got to be missing something here, because as I look at that first line item, permanent salaries, okay, we go back to 2016, It was 314, then 321, 404, last year was 449. This year's recommended budget is $1,077,000. Where does that come from? Or how is that?
If I may, so what we did as part of the 2020 budget is we moved all of the inspectors that were previously in budget number 521, health inspections, and we moved that full complement of inspectors under this 241 budget, so that all the inspectors of the city now fall within budget number 241. With a
Okay,
director of
okay, so
inspection.
we're not going to go into another department and find there's going to be like, okay, so
No,
this
no.
is, so
They're
everybody
all
just got
condensed.
lumped in?
Correct.
Okay.
And basically, you can refer to page 119, and you'll see those inspectors, which won't reflect in the health end.
I see, okay.
And just to add, we also took the Sailor of Weights and Measures department, which was a one-person department, and that's also rolled in here. So
Yeah,
there's two
okay.
less budgets that you
Okay,
look
so
at.
as we go through and we see these individual departments, they're all rolled into this first one?
Yeah, you'll
I
see
just want-
zero appropriated for fiscal year 2020 in those two departments.
Okay.
We left the budget in there just so you have the history of it, but there'll be no appropriations for those two departments.
All right, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't overlooking something. And then the other thing that I just had a question on, you know, but this would be for my own edification, because I know I hear from people, they want to go talk to a building inspector, and there's only certain hours they can go.
Yep.
Can you explain what those hours are and explain how that works?
Well, basically, the inspector's hours are Monday through Friday, 8:15 to 9:30. Those are office hours. I mean, obviously, depending on the demand of the inspections, they vary, in 4 to 5 Monday through Thursday. But inspectors are typically there in and out during the day, but those are set times that we can have some communication. But again, with the clerical one that we're trying to hire, they might be able to expedite and answer some of those questions that are needed.
Yeah,
Instead of
because
seeing the
that's,
building
I
official.
have to say, for years, that's been one common complaint that I've got. People, they got to go between this window, that window, and
Yeah.
people work. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not as though that they don't have their own stuff going on.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know, hopefully that will, I don't know if this extra clerk's position you're talking about is going to help alleviate some of
Yeah, I
that, but
think,
that's been
I think a lot of these are the investment, I mean, obviously, the department demands have grown tremendously. And I think this would help have someone at the counter where they can ask some questions. Maybe not on the technical end, but we can direct them in the right place if we need them. If we
Okay.
can do it.
Okay, if there's no other questions, Benny, thank you for appearing. We appreciate it, and we'll
Thank you,
be
Chairman.
voting on the budget Monday.
Thank you.
Next up, thank you. Next up will be health, public health, health and public health.
Okay. Nick Catanazzo, Acting Health Director. I'm still acting. Basically,
Hold on for 1 second.
Sure.
We're going to page 146.
Just for clarification, this is one of the budgets that's been zeroed out.
Okay.
So 522 would be the start of where there are appropriations. But again, just to keep the history, if you look at page 146, that's the Health Inspection Division, which all of those personnel and expenditures have been moved to that 241 budget, which is why you saw the increase there. So I just wanted to point out, but there's no appropriations in that particular budget. And I believe you'd want to go to page 149. That's where you'd see Department 522, where there would be appropriations.
Yep. Okay,
yeah.
Nick.
Okay, basically, we, starting out the year, right, we got all new handheld devices for all our inspectors. Right now, we're working to sync them with one of our systems. Should be ready in a couple of weeks. Got all, and you'll see it in one of the appropriation funds that Benny has. I think it costs us like about $22,000 to get those new devices to bring us up to date on for our inspectors and the new inspector who's coming in. We got 4 new devices, so it's really going to really help us out in the city. The other thing is the rodent control basically went all to 311. So any of the calls coming in are handled by 311. Really, basically, they're out of our jurisdiction right now. So it's all being taken care of 311, and according to all the information we're getting in, we hired 2 contractors. One's taking care of one side of Broadway, the other's taking care of the other side of Broadway, and it's been very successful. So everything, the calls are down, the rodent activity's down. We got new barrels out there, and the city council, I think the ordinance is brought in front of the city council to change the ordinance on trash, which there'll be no more bags allowed on the ground, which was a big problem. Broken open bags by skunks or rodents, just people throwing their trash out the window. So this will give us a real good tool right now to keep the city cleaner. Also, we updated our website for Health Department, ISD, which is a lot more information on there where people can get all kinds of information. They don't have to call down to our office anymore. They know when their trash is being, put out and everything. So it's we've got a lot of good things coming in the coming years.
Any questions from councilors? Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's really quick and it's not a serious question at all. I'm just curious, for the flu shot line item, it looks like it was negative 4,000 in 2016, then it jumped up to 30,000, and then it dropped down to 280. Why is that so sporadic?
I think Rich he could probably answer that better than me.
Just curious. It's strange to go from the negatives to 30,000 to $200. I'm on page 146.
Flu vaccine.
Quite honestly, I don't have a great answer right now. I can do some research on that, but I do know that our flu vaccine shots are now handled through a special revenue account where we get reimbursed, and all those flu shot revenues and expenditures are handled through the grants that we get. And but I can check out the history of it. I just I didn't really look too deep into the 2 or 3 fiscal years ago. So
No, of course, and again, not a serious line item. It's just strange to go from the negatives and then 30,000 and then 200. So
Yeah.
if the grants make sense.
okay.
Thank you.
Council Morbido?
Thank you. My question is pertaining to baiting.
Yes.
So are we still contracted? What's the name of the company that's going out?
There's 2 companies. I'm not too sure. I don't have it in front of me because again, it was done through 311.
So
But-
are they servicing so when a customer calls?
Yes.
They're signing a waiver. The city will the company will come down, the third party,
That's correct.
place the bait box in the yard.
Well, that's not totally true.
No.
So basically, somebody will come down, inspect your yard for burrows. If you have burrows and they think there's activity on your property, then they'll bait the burrows, okay? If they don't see any activity, they won't bait, because you can't just lay bait on the ground because of domestic animals.
Okay, so I came across a few residents in Revere.
Yeah.
I actually was down Harris Street, and they took me into their yards. The bait boxes that they got through the city.
Yes.
Now, what is the process of checking the bait? Does the city come and?
The bait company will go back to the property to check and see if there's still activity. And how a bait box works is they put bait inside the box. If there's rodents in the area and they go in, they eat the bait, and they go back to the burrow and
So how often are they supposed to service them? Because they were showing me they opened the bait box and how basically rat ate most of the bait.
Yeah.
But wondering, they haven't seen someone come back in months and they were buying their own bait.
Yeah, well, I think you would have, I'm not too sure how that works. Like I said, it's been taken out of the health department.
Okay.
You could call 311.
So they're taking care of health inspection issues.
As a matter of fact, I can give you, I have something right here on it. Just give me a second. Pretty sure it's there. Let me find it. Let's get this. This is the whole thing. Download it, you can read that. It tells you everything about the baby and how this went down.
Okay, so 311 would basically, 311 would be able to tell me
Yes,
how the checkups go.
That's
with
correct.
the bait box. Okay, thanks, Nick.
sure.
Any other councilors have any questions for Nick? Councilor Zambudo.
Just a quick comment. I want to thank our friend Nick for continuing to serve here.
Thank you.
I know that
Appreciate it.
the easy thing would have been to walk away, but you care about the city and you stay, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. I enjoy working here.
And you do a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other councilors? Thank you, Nick.
Sir,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you for appearing.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much. Carol? Oh, okay.
If you have any questions,
So
I
we're,
brought Carol along with me. If you
okay,
have
well,
any questions, yeah.
so we're on page 149. Is that separately budgeted or,
Yes.
no, well, that's, yeah,
That's what we were just talking about when Councilor Janino asked the question on the elderly, on the flu vaccine.
Okay, so if we go over the permanent salaries, it doesn't look like that is zeroed out the way or is this just all part of the master
Yeah.
health department?
Yeah.
521 basically handled the inspecting part of health, which moved into the inspectional services. Now
Okay.
this 522 budget deals with the public health nurse and our regional health coordinator and all the nurses in the school, et cetera, Board of Health.
But if you look at page 152,
Yes.
it's just very confusing because you look at FY19, it's 449,000, mayor's recommendation is 662.
Yeah.
So why would that, I don't understand how that is coinciding with, I mean,
No, in 521, all the numbers are zero. So when we eliminated 521 budget,
so why is that 662 there then?
well, if you just go to the next page, you'll see the money was appropriated in that budget. So there is a new position being budgeted here for a public health director at $96,900, which would have spiked it up. And then the results of the collective bargaining agreements being settled and the compounding 2 years' worth of raises would get you to that number. So there's one new position at $96,900. And then you have the existing employees with their current salaries as agreed to in collective bargaining for fiscal year 2020.
The administrative assistant was also, that's basically Noreen was moved into that particular position as secretary for that particular department. So would be the administrative assistant.
So Noreen.
Okay, well, I'll like be honest with you. I find this budget looking, we're trying to look like we do every year, and I understand things change over time, but I think this is very confusing when you say, oh, go back to 521 and look at that. Well, when you're looking at this page in particular, 152, I mean, these numbers are the numbers. I mean, is this not the money that's allocated for the public health initiatives department?
No, what I'm trying to explain is there was a budget, 521, that had employees in it last year.
Right.
So we eliminated that budget, and we took 90% of those positions and put them under 241, which is Director of Inspectional Services. So all those salaries moved into that, and that's why you saw the big spike there. Secondly, we moved the administrative assistant, which was previously budgeted in 521, down to 522, although it's not a new position. We basically eliminated that budget, and we had to move the people to where we thought it was more appropriate. Now, it's a little confusing because it's new, but that's what I'm trying to, I'm here to try to help answer any questions on that. We did talk about it in the narrative in the cover letter and some of the new initiatives, but certainly there are changes, and that's, I'm happy to help answer.
Well, I just got to be honest with you. I mean, from the very beginning, when you said, the budget, your letter originally indicated that the budget went down from last year. If you compare your letters from FY19 to FY20, and when the budget is actually $217 million, and we get something that says it's actually lower than than last time.
Well, I don't think that's true, Counselor, because the appropriation order indicates $217 million. And I already explained that I didn't reconcile last year's letter to this year, and I apologize for that, but that's not meant to be disingenuous.
But that's how those budgets have gone every single year. They've never been broken out. And, you could go back as far as you want, because I've sat through these budgets, and, it wouldn't stand to it wouldn't make sense, like, using your number, because even, like, go back to the budget before last year. I mean,
Well, the budget before last year wasn't prepared by me. So this particular budget that we've put forward.
I'm not suggesting the budget would, but in any case, okay, we're just trying to follow our way through.
No, I understand that. I'm here to try to
We've got
help.
like new positions that weren't listed as new, and I mean, we're trying to follow along. I know it was an oversight. I understand that. But, we're trying to understand and get our head around this budget so we can vote on it on Monday.
Oh, I understand, and I'm here to help you try to
yeah.
understand it as well. So
Okay.
I'm doing my best, and
I appreciate
again,
it.
I believe that this is probably the most informative
I appreciate it.
budget that you've received, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Nick, thank you very much. I don't think, did any other councilors have any questions? Thank you very much,
All right,
Nick.
thank you,
I
Mr.
appreciate
Chairman.
it. Thank you.
All right.
Moving on, Healthy Community Initiatives, was that included in this also, or do we need to hear from Healthy Community Initiatives, or is that
No, that budget remained the same.
that remain the
Yep,
same?
exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Healthy Community Initiatives is up next.
Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, councilors. So Healthy Community Initiatives, we are a department that works with residents, businesses, and stakeholders to make Revere a healthier place to eat and live, and we do this through policy and system and environmental changes. And 3 of our main strategies are active living, active transportation, food justice, and neighborhood organizing. And over the fiscal 19 period, we have had several accomplishments. We helped to pass you all helped to pass and we are implementing a complete streets policy and prioritization plan, which allows us to apply for Mass DOT funds, for technical assistance, and for construction funds. We've also had piloted the Summer Night Series, and this year the first event is kicking off tomorrow, and that has been in conjunction with the Parks and Recreation Department as well. We are also doing a lot of work with the North Suffolk Public Health Regional Director, and also our Community Needs Health Assessment that is mandated by the Attorney General for hospitals to conduct. And since we have several healthcare institutions here in the city, we are undergoing this health needs assessment. And I'd also like to share that we were one of 20 cities in the country to receive a National America Walks grant that helped to rehab the Pearl Ave and Webster Street public stairs in Beachmont, which is helping to now apply for other funding to repair additional public stairs. And also, currently, we are administering and about to implement the YouthWorks grant and program, which is a youth workforce development pilot. This summer, we're going to have about 60 to 65 young people who are going to be placed in departments around the city and some of the local businesses and nonprofits in the city as well.
Okay. Want to move over to the numbers, page 158. Any questions from councilors on page 158? Page 159, any questions from councilors? Page 159, no questions. And page 160, very inconsequential, nothing going on there. Any general questions? Councilor Zambudo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I missed the beginning of this, so I apologize. Are all your positions through a grant, or what percentage of your budget is grant money?
So currently, we have one grant that, the Mass in Motion grant that funds my position, and that grant is ending this fiscal, it's actually ending in September. And so you'll see that reflected here in the budget. And then the other two staff are budgeted through the city.
Okay, so there's only one grant, and that's running out. That's your position in that grant, so you'll have to be funded through the city.
Correct.
Council, just to clarify, it's just a portion of her salary is funded through a grant.
Oh.
Most of it is funded through the appropriation.
Oh, okay.
The grant ends in September, so we apportioned the amount that we could use from that grant for the salary. So $10,000 is used to offset the salary of Dimple.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, thank you.
Any other councilors have any questions? If you could just go, page 159, could you just explain what the neighborhood organizer does, and the clerk one, can you explain what their role is?
Sure. Excuse me, sure. So Clerk One is actually our active transportation manager who works on all of our transportation-related work. So that includes right now the Charlie cards that are being available through the city, and that's working through our department and making sure that seniors are also aware of the discounted senior Charlie cards. We've also been working on the Northern Strand Community Trail, the Complete Streets policy and implementation with the prioritization plan. And last year, we were also working on the bike share program under all of our active transportation work. Our neighborhood organizer is currently, so she started late last year, so there was a gap between the last neighborhood organizer and hiring a new neighborhood organizer, and the current neighborhood organizer is part-time, and she's been working on implementing a NeighborWays project, which is placemaking and traffic calming, a project that is going to pilot in the Garfield area and also in Beachmont. In addition,
So what's that again? Can you explain what that is?
So NeighborWays, it's a national program, and they had approached the city to see if we were interested in piloting NeighborWays. And so that project, it allows for neighbors in a residential area to come together to help to create some unique art and also placemaking, which is traffic calming, so adding
Traffic what?
traffic calming, so adding things like planters onto the sidewalks to just beautify that area so that it actually slows cars down in a residential area. So over the past year or so, we've been working with the different community groups in both neighborhoods and also the residents and also the ward counselors on identifying the locus, the locations where these projects will go into, and we're looking to implement them both this summer or early fall.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Zambudo?
Thank you for the latitude, Mr. Chairman. So I'm assuming Clerk 1 is Julie DeMoro,
Correct.
who does a terrific job.
Yes.
Who's the neighborhood organizer?
So our current part-time neighborhood organizer is Viney Hewitt.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. If there's no other, Councilor Guanasso?
Dimple, you said you work with the ward councils in reference to these planters and that you slow down the traffic. I don't recall any in Ward 3. I've never been consulted as to where I thought they should be, or is that an omission or
So right
an
now,
oversight?
no, not at all. We're actually implementing it right now in Ward 1 and Ward 2 only. And so Joanne McKenna has been aware, in conjunction with the Beachmont Improvement Committee, with the NeighborWays project in Beachmont, and then Ira Novoselsky, Ward 2 counselor, has been involved with the Garfield area project. And those are the only two pilots that are happening right now. And we're going to see how the pilots go, and then if there is demand for extending these pilots to the rest of the city, we're certainly going to work with ward counselors and neighbors in making that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. If there's no further questions, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. And that will conclude the Healthy Community Initiatives portion. Now the SUDI office. We'll move on to page 161. Page 161.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Counselors? So, do you want me to just give you?
If you just, you don't have to go line by line. You want to give an overview and then we'll go into the numbers. I don't think this, you can go into as far as you want, or.
Okay. So, I'll go back to fiscal year 19, just a few updates about what we did. We hired a full-time recovery coach, which we share with the town of Saugus through the MOAPC grant. It's a 35-hour week position. That person was hired in April, so that gives us a little bit more capacity to provide services to the community. We held our first barbecue, our recovery barbecue, last September, which we plan to do again. We partnered with 311 so that if there is a syringe, if a resident finds a syringe, we will respond within 24 hours and safely discard that syringe. So I don't know if many residents know about that, but they can just put a request into 311 and we'll come pick up the syringe. Let's see. We engaged 150 locations or families post-overdose outreach through the fire department and the police department, which is what we do on a weekly basis on Tuesday evenings. And what that consists of, anytime Narcan's been administered in the city, we get a report from the public safety data analyst, provides us a weekly report of all of the weekly overdoses. The team then convenes on Tuesday evenings. They go over the list and they respond to those houses to provide access to resources as well as Narcan training. So we try to give them Narcan before that situation happens again, if it does happen again. One of the things that we're going to be doing this year, because we have noticed that there's an increase in overdoses taking place in public restrooms. So we're trying to come up with a strategy where we can engage local businesses, like these hotspots, where we can train their staff so that they know how to recognize and respond to an overdose. And they feel equipped, it's really important that they have the tools and the resources to do so, because oftentimes somebody's locked in a bathroom and that's when fatalities take place. So we want to try to prevent that as much as possible. As far as this upcoming year, a few things that we want to work on. We really want to try to develop or engage the recovery community as much as possible. And one of the things that other communities have done in other states and other cities and towns is called Recovery Community Organization, which is an independent group that would potentially become its own 501c3 to really try to raise the voice of the recovery community, and they would be engaged in planning events, provide input on policy changes and things like that. And that's something that our recovery coach is going to be working on throughout the next year. Let's see, what else is there? We're working with MAPC to think about how do we sustain these types of strategies beyond the expiration of our grants, which is one of the things that's going to be happening within the next year. A lot of our grants are expiring in 2021, so we're trying to figure out what sustainability looks like and how to resonate with the community so that they can understand the value and the importance of continuing these types of strategies. If you want me to go over the numbers, I can.
I don't think that's necessary. Any councilors have any questions? Councilor Morabito?
Thank you.
Sure.
You brought to our attention that you collaborate with 311 and in regards to discarded needles, syringes that are found. So I think that's a great program. You guys go out there within 24 hours, pick up the syringe. Do you have on hand an estimated count of how many calls you receive on that?
Honestly, we don't receive many, which is why I mentioned it, because I think if people were aware that maybe we would receive more, but I'd say on average, maybe 3 or 4 a month. Not many.
Council President Quinasso.
Mr. Chairman, it seems like for the great work that you do, this is a very, very modest budget you have here. And I don't know how you put the effort forward in the goodwill to our community with such a modest budget. Certainly, it should be probably 10 times that amount.
Thank you.
But you do a great job there, and just knowing that you're there, that when we have a situation when someone has a need to come to you, that you're there to be able to service them is a great feeling. And I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you,
I
Councilor.
appreciate your
Thank you.
effort.
Thank you.
Any other councilors wishing to be heard? I just had one question. You talked about this recovery coach, and so can you explain that a little bit? Because I mean, they're not included in the budget, correct?
So they should be included in the budget. Yeah, it's a grant-funded position. So let me see. Actually, I have the numbers here.
Because I see a director and 2 principal clerks.
Oh, so, I'm sorry, excuse me. So the person who is a recovery coach, the way that the union, the classification system worked, it was, I guess, easiest to define that role as a principal clerk because there isn't a recovery coach position listed in the union.
Okay, so then.
So they
it's
get
safe to
paid as a
assume
principal clerk.
That principal clerk, the least tenured principal clerk,
Yes.
is the recovery coach?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, just wanted to be clear on that. And-
Yep.
and so to be clear, your grant is expiring in 2021, so it looks like the only position that's being funded, not on grant, is the recovery coach, correct? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So right now, 87% of our total budget is grant funding.
Okay, and what's the prognosis for the,
DPH is in the process of developing a new funding structure right now, and they anticipate that they will let us know what that's going to look like, but we're at the mercy of the state. So they're ending all of their prevention grants at the same time so that they can roll out this new funding structure. framework. So we'll see, but we do have to stay on top of it, and we do have to make sure that in the interim period that we are able to continue beyond the expiration of the grants.
Right. Okay, well, very good. If there's no further questions, Julie, I don't think that we have any, I don't think we have anything further for you unless you have anything further for us.
Nope, that's it.
Well, Julia, thank you very
Thank you
much
so
for your
much,
help.
guys. Thanks.
Moving right along, we're now going to move on. We've already had engineering, so we'll go to Public Works, page 129.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Paul.
So just to briefly go over, 2019, we hired 4 new employees, which allowed us to staff our departments in a much better manner, and it's helped tremendously. An update on the new building. I want to thank the City Council and the Mayor again for funding that and appropriating the money. In a couple of weeks, we'll be going out for requests for qualifications for an OPM, an Owner's Project Manager, get that person on board, and then we will then move to seeking a place to move to while this construction goes on, and we'll be hiring an architect. We do have some preliminary plans. Those were drawn up by Weston and Sampson, but that was in conjunction with the feasibility study. So we will have to hire an architect to do the final design, and we'll hope to move that along fairly quickly. I know everyone's anxious, especially me, to get the new building up. I know Councilor Marabito brought up the rodent issue. Just to clarify, the 311 manages that. It's funded through the DPW and the water sewer side. I think that program is going very well. The 16,000, 17,000 cots that we just provided to all the residents to try to keep the trash covered up has helped immensely. So we hope to continue that and expand upon it. We have been working in conjunction with 311 to try and categorize and put all our constituent complaints into different categories, and then we set a benchmark. So for instance, potholes, we'd like to, we're striving to get 80% of them done within a week's time. As we come, and that applies to all the different categories, tree trimming and all the different things that we encounter. When we reach those benchmarks or come closer, we try to raise the bar and get things done a little bit quicker. So we've been very successful in doing that, and we want to continue that. One of the things that's been happening, obviously, the roof, the staging is finally done. The roof of City Hall is 90% complete. We've moved on to the HVAC system. Now we are going into the phase where we're going to start the interior work here. This is all money that was funded through the tornado. We'll be doing the council chambers, the auditorium, and all the other damage that occurred during that tornado. A long time coming, but it's finally happening. So I think there are some other things, but we can move on to the numbers. And our tree planting program, a tree trimming program, we've become a Tree City USA. We've spent a considerable amount of money removing dead trees, trimming trees, and in conjunction with the DCR, I think we've planted close to 1,500 trees, both on public and private property. And that's scheduled to continue for the next couple of years, our partnership with them, in the hopes of getting up to about 2,500 by the time the program's over. So if you want to move on to numbers.
Sure. Let's go to page 131.
131, the DPW is broken up into different categories. The first one is administration. There are no new positions there. Increases because of contractual negotiated raises, obviously. No new positions there. Administrative staff, myself, administrative assistant, principal clerk, supervisor, the payroll supervisor, and the storekeeper. As far as line items, there's office supplies level funded, slight increase in equipment and supplies, and computer operations, the answering service, mobile 311. At any time, if anyone asks a question.
Yeah, so if we could just stay on that page, I mean, maybe again, just for an explanation, where these numbers have been moving. FY '18, $1,386,000, then FY '19 dropped down to $523, and now it looks like this year going to $473. So what's happening there?
Well, I think it's just the how the employees have been categorized. Like in the trash and recycling, you'll notice a 13% increase there. That was just because a couple of employees were moved from there into trash and recycling. So it's just a shifting of employees and trying to categorize them properly. We're not adding any new positions in any of the phases of DPW this year. On page 134 is snow and ice. That's the same amount as been historic, but we've moved some of those figures around, cut down on the overtime a little bit, but we've added computer operations. That's the GPS tracking for the contractors. Added some money in there for the maintenance of equipment that used to be lumped in with the rest of the equipment. This would be specifically for snow plowing and sanding operations, and obviously materials, salt. We spend a lot more on salt, but at least now we have a line item that covers up some of it. Then we move on to page 136, the Highway Division. Again, the different employees from the Highway Division. No new employees this year. Increases because of contractual obligations. The various line items. Street signs, that's level funded. Contracted painting services, that's used to paint crosswalks and center lines. That's level funded. Contracted pothole and trench repairs. This is when we need some assistance from private contractors for large repairs, or if we get overwhelmed, the year may overwhelm us with potholes. Street sweeping, that's the contracted street sweeping. Traffic signal repair, we upped that this year because our signalization is aging, and we use that up pretty quickly, so we have a little increase there. Materials, a lot of things come out of that. A lot of asphalt that we use for potholes and what have you gets paid out of that. And new equipment, that's for small equipment if we need to buy a lawnmower, riding mower, compressor or something, a generator. That's for small new equipment. Next, we move to parks and open space. We've added there are no new employees, but we've added a couple last year because we wanted to concentrate more on park, playground, and athletic field maintenance. So the employees there, no new positions this year. Page 141, the line items for that division. Spraying and planting, flowers, fertilizer, holiday decorations also comes out of that account. Tree removal. There is a little reduction this year, but money was appropriated out of free cash to help with that line item. So we had a appropriation of $50,000 from free cash, so that's why we were able to reduce this line item a little bit. Field maintenance, increase there. The 3-year contract cycle with the contractors that we use for our grass cutting on the large schools and athletic fields. When the bids came in, it went up slightly. That accounts for the increase there. miscellaneous tools, police details, if we need those for the tree trimming and removal activity or for snow removal, things of that nature, and capital maintenance and repair. This is for some larger projects, if we need to do a large playground structure or something that's not covered by the Community Development Office. And that was level funded also.
Paul, can you just stay in on page 139?
Okay.
And maybe I just missed it. So the FY19 budget under permanent salaries was 157, 2020 is 257. So what was is that again, somebody was shifted around a little?
Yes, there used to be historically 2 employees in parks, or 1 employee in parks. There are now 3. So again, it's shifting from one division to the other to try to more accurately portray what we do. Obviously, at any time, we can move employees from one place to another, depending on the workload. But in last year's budget, I believe there was 1 employee, now there's 4.
Okay.
Okay. We now move to facilities and public property. That's obviously our maintenance of the city-owned buildings. The sign department is incorporated in here, the custodians. Line items here. Street lighting, level funded at 618. Hopefully, in the future, I believe it's supposed to start pretty soon. I think Bob O'Brien may be able to shed some light on this. He's been working with National Grid, and they are supposed to come in and start moving all our street lights over to LED. So we should see significant savings in that line item at some point when that does start to happen. We have public building heat, public building lights. We do the City Hall, the Legion Building, the Youth Center, the McKinley School. That's what the public buildings are referenced in those 2 line items. Gasoline and oil, obviously for diesel and gasoline. Building maintenance, that's for the repair of the public buildings. There's been a little reduction in that line item. A lot of the work at City Hall that's going to happen is through insurance money. Plus, I think the thought is any large projects will be funded through the capital improvement plan. Maintenance of equipment, obviously that's to maintain our trucks and other equipment. Contracted services, that's when Roker and the inmate program is paid out of that. Rentals and leases, that's to rent the trailer and the land that the trailers are on down at the Public Works facility now. Rental of the other equipment is for copier and some storage space that we've started to move some things into. Try to clear up the yard a little bit. The culvert cleaning has been removed from the DPW budget. That may be addressed in water sewer, but Don Chirmella can speak more about that. And janitorial supplies, level funded. Now we're on to the solid waste and recycling enterprise fund. I had asked President Guanasso.
This would be, if I could stop you, Paul, this is under section 4, page 3.
Page 13, right, section 4, page 13.
Okay. Are we on the water and sewer enterprise, or we're on the...
No, Don Chirmella.
Okay, so
we're on the solid waste and recycling enterprise
Okay,
fund.
I don't even have that on my schedule. Where is it? No, I'm saying on the schedule here that was...
It's
present-
incorporated in DPW.
Okay, all right. So, page 13, okay. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so the salaries and what have you, there is an increase there because we did move another couple of employees in here. I had asked President Guanasso if I could speak before the council next week, because we got a $40,000 grant from DEP, and I just want to explain to everyone how that's going to work. We're going to launch it the end of June, and there will be some effect on residents, so I'll explain that next week. I just wanted to make you aware of that. The line items, as you know, and we've talked about it at length, the cost of the recycling now is out of sight, and this DEP grant is going to hopefully allow us to get that under control. So we had to add money to that line item because all our loads of recycling are contaminated. People have lost sight as to how to recycle, so it's having an adverse effect on that. Rubbish removal is Capital Waste, who picks up our rubbish and recycling. We have recycling disposal, and we have rubbish disposal. And that's the trash that goes to Wheelabrator. We have computer services. That's for the tracking software on all our carts now, and the new trash app that we hope residents will use more often, and we can get more residents to start using it. It's a great educational tool as to how to recycle and what you can put in trash and what you can put in the recycling. Pest and rodent control. We funded this last year in conjunction with some funding in water and sewer. We found that we didn't have to spend as much money that we had originally thought, so we were able to reduce that line item. Capital outlay, that's for the lease payment on the trash carts that we purchased. We entered into a 3-year lease, so we'll be paying for those carts spread out over 3 fiscal years. And new equipment is purchase of more recycling barrels and trash carts. As recycling barrels are free, trash carts, there is an expense to those, but we do have to purchase them initially. And I believe that's it.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Any questions from councilors? Councilor Zambudo?
Just a comment, I want to congratulate the director for doing a great job. Very responsive anytime I've ever had any interaction with you, and I'm truly happy that you're in this position.
Thank you very much.
Paul, so if there's no other questions, you know, there's a lot to digest here, and you went through, and I thank you for all of that. But, you know, one thing that jumped out, in fact, I actually have a motion in for this coming Monday night. Maybe you can help explain that, because that culvert cleaning that was removed, and that might be addressed within the water sewer portion. But, you know, one of the complaints that I received last year, around this time, a little later, was the fields, I guess, had an inordinate amount of mosquitoes. Yes. And so I was placing calls seemingly for months last year about mosquito control, and I'm just wondering, you know, what is going to be done or what normally is done to control mosquitoes, because like I say, last year was a bad year, and I was hearing it no matter where. I mean, in fact, I'm already hearing it now. Somebody sent me pictures of a kid with all these mosquito bites from Ambrose Park. So, you know, so it's already starting, and I'm just a little concerned that it might just make its way to other fields across the city. And of course, with, you know, cases of West Nile and whatever other airborne diseases you can, or, you know, diseases that you can get from insect bites, in particular mosquitoes, that parents, and rightfully so, they're concerned when they go to the parks and playgrounds with their kids, maybe you can give us a little explanation on, you know, what we can look forward to seeing with respect to mosquito control.
Don could certainly speak to the culverts and the cleaning of the culverts and trying not to have stagnant water. We have received a lot of complaints from the different parks. We've worked with Michael Hinojosa, Carl Svensson, and the ISD office. Northeast Mosquito Control has started initial spraying of Ambrose, St. Mary's, and Beachmont. Any park that needs spraying can be on the schedule at Northeast Mosquito Control, and they have started, and they will be on a regular schedule for the rest of the season. The correspondence goes from the health inspector to Northeast Mosquito Control, so they handle the scheduling, what have you. But I've been involved in that, and it has started to happen, and it will continue to happen through the summer.
Okay, good. You know, like I say, I mean,
It's terrible. It's
yeah.
going to be a bad year because of all the wet weather this
Right.
spring.
Right, we've had more days of rain than sun, so,
Right.
yeah,
Positively.
so. Okay, if there's no further questions, Paul, thank you. I know that, you know, unfortunately, because of scheduling and other things, you know, I would have liked to ideally had these hearings during the workday, if at all possible, but I appreciate you all being here to go through this with us. Again, like I say, we'll be voting out the budget on Monday night, barring any unforeseen situations, but
Okay.
I appreciate you being here, Paul.
You're welcome, and I will be here next week to just explain that grant that we got from DEP and how it's going to affect residents, so everybody's well aware of what's going to be happening. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Moving along, we are now on Water and Sewer Enterprise, which that is page 3 under section 4.
Good evening. Don Chiaramella, Superintendent of the Water and Sewer Department.
Thank you for appearing.
Thank you.
You could walk us through the...
So I'd like to speak of some of our accomplishments first, and I'm glad you're talking about culvert cleaning and ditch cleaning, because probably for the first time we're...
Actually, if I could stop you just for 1 second, my apologies, it's actually page 1, because I was going right to the numbers, so, you know, we're actually on section 4, page 1. Go ahead, so you can...
So some of our, we're talking about ditch cleaning, the mosquito problem. So just a little bit of history as far as, you know, the amount of rain we've had and how we're managing our storm water for a coastal town. 2018 was a record rainfall, was 53.32 inches, which is a record breaker from 1889. And this year, we're running even with last year's numbers. To date, we have 21.33 inches of rain so far, as of versus of same time last year, 2018, 21.89. Previous years, the average rainfall is 32 inches and 30 inches respectively. So average rainfall is about 30 inches a year. So not quite double, but right up there for 2018. Big year. Beat 1889. So I think if we're a coastal town, one of the first orders of business was focusing on the flooding issues that many people have complained about. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe those complaints are starting to subside a little bit, because we've cleaned almost double the amount of material out of our catch basins. Previous years, it's about 200 ton of material out of our catch basins and drain mains. And we are so far 350 to almost 400 tons of material that we have cleaned out of our catch basins and drain mains. So, you know, we are making, so in reference to that, we're trying to really aggressively clean these catch basins and drain mains, because when it gets downstream into the ditches and culverts, it becomes cost prohibitive to dredge it and remove it from there because of the permitting processes with DEP and EPA and Army Corps. Presently, within about 30 days, we'll be starting to clean the Eastern County ditch, which is an undertaking that, you know, that has been has been we've been anxiously waiting for. And we also have now a signed contract with Weston and Sampson to help us, the city, the Water and Sewer Division, to actually remove 2,100 cubic yards of material from the Green Creek. So, in respect to that, we're also starting to focus on Trafoni Brook. And so with that, there are other things that we've also been accomplishing. The unaccountable water for water loss that's in leaky pipes. Usually the average city loses about 28% of water in the domestic water system. And previous years, so it's been, 28%, 30%, 21%, 2016, 9%, 2017, 15%. And recently, we just got an email from MWRA from February to April. We identified, found, and repaired about 320,000 gallon a day loss in, just numerous leaky mains and services, which equals 109 million gallons a year. Also, in some of the discussions about the natural springs, sometimes we find these natural springs aren't so natural. Recently, one on Fennel Street that was running for probably, I was told, in excess of, 10, 15 years. Come to find out, it was just a culmination of many little leaks that we identified with the help of MWRA and we fixed. So that was another 230,000 gallon a day loss that we finally identified, which equals about another 84 million gallons a day, million gallons a year. So respectively, we're continually chipping away at the unaccountable water, and that's with the help of the extra manpower that we had. We have been utilizing for the last year the camera truck. Many people have seen. We have countless hours of video that we have recorded. We have videoed thousands of feet of drain and sewer with this camera truck, and it's been a valuable asset to the city. And thank you for appropriating it for us. We've had a lot of luck in the Dunn Road area from mitigating the flooding down there. We reinstated a drain station down there, and it's been working and successfully. We haven't had any flooding issues down there that have been an ongoing problem. We identified some other flooding issues in the Taft Street area of a 36-inch main that had 11 yards of material in it out of with a capacity of only 33 yards, and so that's a third of the pipe. And so we keep continually finding and identifying these things, and that's with the help of the extra manpower that we have. So before it was pretty much we had an emergency response, but now we are more of a maintenance and proactive on just maintaining our infrastructure, which helps. So any questions?
No, if you want to walk us, we don't have to go line by line, I don't think. If councilors want to turn to page 4 and look at the numbers, see if there's any questions that you have. Anything, any questions that you have on page 4? Yeah, wait, actually, 4 and 5. Any councilors? No questions? Okay. Like, this is a very, this is a small one, but I'm just curious, like printing and mailing, FY19, we budgeted $7,000, now we're recommending $40,000. Like, just what's the purpose of that?
So the increase for the mailing has, was originally, the mailing was originally paid through office supplies, but we also have increased our certified mailing since implementing new procedures in the meter department. So such as leak detection, alerts, and estimated notifications, which have increased our postage costs. So it's not so much as just putting it in the mail, we want to make sure they get it. So particularly for water loss, because sometimes a toilet can run into the thousands of gallons and cost the taxpayer, cost the resident, countless money. Now, by no fault of the city, but unfortunately leaky toilets and what have you, and just sometimes just, you don't hear it. So when we detect it in the meter office, when we detect it through census, we like to make sure that they get it, get the notification, if we don't have a phone number. So it's pretty much certifying the mail that we're sending.
That would be a significant amount of mail, wouldn't it? I mean, that's,
Well-
we do certified mail quite a bit. It just happened to jump out for
Yep.
something as, trivial as mailings,
I understand.
so.
Just to also clarify that throughout the last couple of years, we've been trying to properly budget and identify costs that may have been commingled with other particular lines. So in this case, we've also been supplementing the water and sewer budget through purchasing's general fund budget. So every year, we just try to tweak up these lines so that we're identifying the cost in the proper line. As Don said, in some cases, we borrow from an office supply line or something else. So we're really trying to do our best going forward to budget each line item correctly that reflects the actual cost of the operation. So some of that is also just a reallocation of dollars.
Okay, any other councilors have anything? If not, Donnie, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, moving along, we are, Planning Department. Page, looks like 81. Going back to section 2.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Bob O'Brien. I'm Director of Strategic Planning and Economic Development, so I'll be covering two line items at once, which I'm sure you'll be glad to hear. 2019 has been a quite productive year for our department in the city in this area. As you know, since Ways and Means and the council as a whole has been involved in much of it, I would note just a few of those. Obviously, near the top of the list is the planning and permitting of the redevelopment of Suffolk Downs, which was accomplished in this year, and construction on which will begin in the next fiscal year. We also, in addition to Suffolk Downs, oversaw the permitting, planning, or construction of about 30 different development projects, of which about 10 were commercial or non-residential, and about 19 were residential. The value of those projects is measured in the hundreds of millions of dollars, close to $700 million, actually. They are, in many cases, still in process. About 21 are still in construction or yet to begin construction, but they still, in the current fiscal year, 20, are expected to contribute well over $4 million in property taxes this year, and when they're completed in the next year or two, approximately $10 million annually, separate and apart from what we've already discussed previously at this forum for Suffolk Downs, for example. We also commenced the master planning and visioning process, which was actually initiated with MAPC under your mayoral administration. It was very successfully inaugurated in January. We've had several public forums and other focus groups. We hope to complete that process in the next fiscal year, but it has been very successful to date, great participation, great feedback, should result in some excellent recommendations. We are also have focused on development possibilities outside of Suffolk Downs on our other major development sites, which include the former NECO property, which is really not an economic development project so much as it is an employment and re-tenanting project, but certainly Wonderland and Caddy Farms, which are our two major vacant development properties. We have begun the process in this year. We expect that to come to fruition for at least some of those in fiscal year 20. I'll speak to that in a moment. We continue with a number of initiatives, including the Broadway and Shirley Avenue improvement programs. We've extended the storefront and signage improvement programs to Shirley Avenue quite successfully. We have implemented all of the contracting services for street and sidewalk repairs, which are in excess of $1 million, including another $1 million or so for Chapter 90. And the 311 projects are being done in close coordination with the DPW. Site Plan Review Committee, which is under our purview, has processed more than 250 projects. The Planning Board has done another dozen, and the Conservation Committee has done another 30 or so. So there's been a lot of activity through all of those regulatory agencies. We continue to operate the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is about an $800,000 a year effort. And this year we have been successful in securing funding from the Mass Gaming Commission to assist both in our economic development activities as well as transportation planning in conjunction with the town of Saugus. We're talking about close to $500,000 that has been devoted to that effort and will continue into the next year. We're working closely with TND on both workforce development and affordable housing initiatives. We also were able to secure 2 opportunity zone designations, one for the area in and around Wonderland and the other for the district around Shirley Avenue. And we are in the process of completing an assessment of our organizational capability. All of those will move, obviously, into the next year. I would just highlight, however, some of the focus for fiscal year 20 that's worth noting. We'll continue with our economic development activities on a broad front, but with increasing emphasis on the need for an opportunity for commercial development, particularly in Wonderland, at NECO, and at Caddy Farms. Those projects have already been begun, but I think they will come to fruition in fiscal year 20, and we are certainly all looking forward to that and to the employment opportunities that they will create. On the housing side, we are paying increasing attention to the need to maintain the affordability of our existing housing and to create new affordable housing opportunities. Almost all of the development, particularly along the waterfront, has been market rate, which has been beneficial in many respects, but we want to focus in the next fiscal year on the potential secondary effects of the increased rents that are being generated there and arguably at Suffolk Downs on the existing housing community. We continue to focus on improving our infrastructure. The street and sidewalk repair program under 311 as well as under Chapter 90 is continues to be expanded. Our focus also is on parkland improvements. In the last fiscal year, we did major parkland improvements at both Harmon Park and Gibson. This year, we certainly will be doing Curtis and others, so that program continues. Paul had referenced the NGRID program. I think it is worth noting that Revere will be the first municipality in a new NGRID program that will convert all of our streetlights to LED at no cost to the city. You may know in the past The only way you could do that was to actually purchase the streetlights, which was a major capital investment. That will not be required. All of this will be done at Ngrid's expense, and the annual savings, once completed, should be $150,000 to $180,000 a year. So it's kind of all benefit, no cost. They will begin it this year. They hope to have it completed by the end of this calendar year. So it's a major effort that will be a big improvement and a big savings. We are also looking finally at the capabilities of the department itself. We are in something of a transition. I'll be 77 in a couple of months. We have 3 people who are on semi-retired status. We want to emphasize workforce development activities, which is kind of a new focal point of ours. One, by the way, that was dramatized by Amazon, where it became perfectly clear that our economic development activities were perhaps a bit ahead of our workforce development, and that we would be perhaps with Amazon creating jobs that we were not ready for Revere residents to fill. So we're trying to close that gap, and also in the commercial development sector, create jobs for which people are relatively ready now. We're working with TND on this effort. The initial focus, for example, will be on the hospitality sector, given the new hotels that are being created here, given the casino, etc. So those are the focal points for fiscal year 20. Much of them are continuation and refinement of what has been done in fiscal year 2019. I will say just a couple of quick things about the numbers and be glad to answer any questions. One thing that I think is worthy of note, we have 10 employees in the department, full-time and part-time, in no small part because of the new budgeting procedures implemented by our auditor right in front of me here. All of our employees, regardless of whether they are appropriated from the city or funded from other sources, are now shown in our official budget. As you may know, in previous years, the official budget of this agency only included appropriated funds, which was the director and the chief planner, i.e. myself and Frank Stringy. We now have all of our employees shown in this department in this budget, and I think that's helpful from my perspective. I think it's helpful from your perspective, and I think it reflects well on the new budgeting procedures that the auditor has put in place. Secondly, I would say if we have noted here that there are 2 new employees. One of those employees, Clerk 1, has actually been employed since 2014 in our department, but was a seasonal employee, has been converted to a permanent employee. So it's only a relatively minor financial change, but it's a significant change from his perspective. And our other new employee is the CDBG program director. Shortly before I came, which was July of 2016, we lost our program director for personal reasons. We were actually able to attract her back. She's extremely experienced and proficient in the administration of the CDBG program, and also will be expanding that program and the funding for that program beyond our basic grant to include new funds for first-time home buyers, housing rehabilitation, etc. So it's a very good investment. She is a new employee technically, but in a sense she's a returning employee, still appropriately identified as Y, but I just want to clarify that. The other thing I would say is, under part-time salaries, we have $133,000. That represents our 3 semi-retired individuals. They are, by name, as you will undoubtedly know, Frank Stringy, Bill Ash, and John Squibb. Each of them has been semi-retired in each of the preceding 3 fiscal years. They are, as I said last year, the best bargain that this department and this city has, because those people are absolutely fundamental to the work of our department. Their institutional experience and memory is unparalleled. It's also one of the reasons why we are focusing on a succession plan, if you will. to transition out of that kind of expertise, which we have for the foreseeable future. Nobody's planning to fully retire, but I just want to emphasize, since they're all in one line item, how important that is, and that's $133,000 for 3 indispensable individuals. That's it, unless you have any questions.
Well, thank you very much for that detailed explanation, Bob. It's very much appreciated. If the councilors want to move on to page 86 and then on to page 87 and 88, if there's any questions for Bob, councilors, you're more than welcome to ask them at this time, or ask any general questions you might have. No questions, Councilor Zambudo?
No, I think I'm good with what I've read. Thank you.
Well, Bob, thank you. I just have some comments, and you know, I've known you for quite a while, and I appreciate you mentioning those 3 gentlemen that we have here part-time still. They are indispensable as far as I'm concerned. They're great city employees, and the one that was brought back, I actually hired her, and she had left for personal reasons. I think went out to Attleboro, I believe,
Correct.
and now she's back, which is great for the city. So she's a great addition. The only thing I'm going to say, and this has nothing to do with the budget, because I'm a big believer in economic development, but I don't think it's any secret to you. I am completely against the proliferation, and now looking at page 83, the continued proliferation of what's listed here on page 83 are major ongoing residential projects. It's just out of control. I don't know. You live on the beach, and I went to that meeting down on Ocean Avenue. And I don't know that I've ever seen 5 or 6 developers present 5 or 6 separate residential projects like that before. And, you know, I'm hearing it. This is not, you know, this is not something that I'm creating or fabricating or, you know, and look, it's great to have fundamental differences, and I think we probably have fundamental differences when it comes to that. But I am much more concerned about people that live here already and their quality of life versus bringing more and more people and more stress on our already crowded roadways, more stress on our infrastructure. I mean, I'm very concerned about Suffolk Downs tying into that public line that we have for the first 5 years until they get their act together and get their infrastructure plans in place. I mean, I'm just really concerned about the quality of life for our existing residents. And well, look, when I was the mayor for, you know, during my term in office, we advocated, you might recall, we had 2 different economic development summits where we were looking to attract people in here, you know, but it was for development that at that time coincided with what we were looking for. Like, for example, when, like, prior to leaving the mayor's office, we were in the middle, we were finding the master developer down at Wonderland, you know, because they had promised a hotel, they had promised the delivery of a hotel within a certain timeline.
Wonderland or Waterfront Square?
Pardon me?
You said Wonderland. Did you mean Waterfront Square?
Waterfront Square, yes. I'm sorry, I meant Wonderland Train. Okay, yeah, Waterfront Square. We were finding the master developer $10,000 a month at that point to deliver us a hotel. It was promised. We still don't have a hotel down at Waterfront Square. And I don't know if they're still being fined $10,000 a month. I would probably tend to believe they're not. But yet we've got a 307-unit apartment building going up to the right-hand side of the Marquis Bridge. So, you know, it's just, I'm concerned. You know, when I think about transit-oriented, right, like we knew there was going to be, I think when the project at Waterfront Square was originally presented, I think there was 800 or 900 units that was there. But the drawings always show beautiful shops and beautiful, we're going to have retail and restaurants, and this is close to 15 years we've been talking about Waterfront Square. It was under the Ambrosino administration. And now here we are, my 4 years, we're coming up to the end of 4 years here. I mean, I don't see a restaurant, I don't see any of what is promised. And I feel like we continue to go down a road listening to these developers, none of whom live in Revere. They come in, they pitch their plans, and they move along, and they go back to wherever it is they live, because they don't have to deal with the crowded roads. So, looking at this page right here was just, to think in 2020 that we're going to entertain 10 more major ongoing residential projects is just, it frustrates me. And
Yeah, I'm not sure what page you're looking at.
page 83?
Yeah, I don't have those numbers here, but let me assure you that there are not 10 more projects that are not already in the planning or permitting phase that I haven't already addressed here. This is obviously a larger discussion for, another forum. Okay. These are subsets of the projects that I'm talking about. These are not 10 new residential projects that will be undertaken in fiscal year 20. These are projects which in some cases will be completed in fiscal year 20 or will continue through construction. I just make a couple of observations. I understand exactly what you're saying. I hear the same things that you hear. What is being done now is, as you alluded to, the culmination of plans that go back decades, certainly to Tom Ambrosino's administration, Waterfront Square and elsewhere. So we are doing what the planning process has suggested in the past this city wants to have done. Everything that we are doing is consistent with existing zoning. In some cases,
It is.
Yes. And yes, in some cases there are variances for minor items, but in terms of basic uses, there is nothing being developed that wasn't contemplated in the existing zoning. The other thing I would add is no one in all of the development that has happened thus far, and we're talking about 2,250 units, of which about 500 actually were the culmination of projects that were begun under your administration. None of them have displaced one resident, not one resident.
So let me just say
They
this.
have also contributed significantly to the property taxes, which has benefited the quality of life. I would finally,
Nobody's taxes have gone down, Bob.
well,
Nobody's taxes have gone down. In fact,
Mr. Chairman?
That's a lot, yes.
With all due respect, we have several of the department heads that are here, and we're kind of
True.
off topic.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Counselor, but, it's, we have once a year where we get to have dialogue, and this.
We can have them up whenever we'd like if we ask them to come up.
This is, Counselor, this is in the budget, so I'm discussing what's in the budget here. If the page wasn't in the budget, I wouldn't discuss it, okay? So again, we will have other discussions about this, I'm sure, but, just to be clear, looking at this was a little unnerving to
Okay, but
me.
keep in
And if
mind-
you're saying that it's just a subset of the 15 major
well,
projects.
it's major ongoing. These are not major new.
Okay,
These are major ongoing.
okay. Thank you very much, Bob.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, I believe, is, next up is parking. Jim? Parking is under page 123.
I'd just like to start by saying good evening, Mr. Chairman and council members. Thank you.
Good evening.
All set?
All set. I'm
Okay.
waiting for you.
All right, we're going to actually start off with accomplishments, the parking department's accomplishments. One of the biggest accomplishments of the parking department is basically we removed all the old meters in the city and replaced them with 269 new smart meters. throughout the city that are basically now fully operational with credit cards and coin capabilities. Also, with that, we've installed and implemented new technology for greater transparency and reporting with meter collections. We now have the ability with these new meters that we can, when we're doing our meter collections, when we turn the money into the collection office and the money is tallied, we can check back at our office with the technology to make sure that the numbers are matching. At any time with these new meters, we can also, on any day, any given day, we can tell what each and every meter in the city is taking in live. So if we wanted to stop at 1 o'clock on any particular day, we know at 1 o'clock that day, the meter took in, let's say, $46.75. So it's been quite, you know, that data is just something that is, you know, terrific with these collections that we're doing. Other accomplishments, we actually increased the meter revenue significantly by implementing the recommendations of the parking study program. This is when I first came into this position. It was an ongoing parking studies program. We had some people from, I think, Harvard in at the time. They came up with some suggestions, and we went with those suggestions. And it seemed to move us in the right direction. We increased the meter hours for an additional 2 hours per day, and basically that brought us up with the in line with the other neighboring cities and towns. We were actually behind a lot of the cities and towns. They go from 8 o'clock to 8 at night. Their hours are actually longer than ours, quite a few of them. There are one or two that might be less, but most of them are at least our hours or more. We contracted a new software company for ticket payment processing and resident stickers with the ability for customers to easily pay fines online, which they weren't able to do that before, and clear marked vehicles through the parking department. Before they couldn't do that, they had to go to the registry. That's a big convenience for anybody that's coming into the parking department, that they're able to actually do that. And last but not least, we installed a new security system in the parking office, whereas we moved out of City Hall, it was suggested by several people in the police department that we should have security across the street at 300 Broadway. So, should I move on to...
Yeah, you can move on.
To goals and objectives next? All right?
Sure.
Okay, presently, as a lot of the councils know and yourself, we're implementing a resident overnight parking permit program. That's something that we're working on now. I've been in touch with 3 different vendors, and we're getting close to basically maybe coming to an agreement with one of the vendors. That doesn't make this process simple, just because we're in that agreement, okay? They've all suggested, this has to be advertised, okay, and advertised over and over again, that with the people the constituents that are out there that are getting this, that they, you know, they have to be well educated on it. Everyone said to make, excuse me, to make this program work, they're all going to have to be very well educated. That's going to take some time. We also have signage to put up. It had been suggested that we do that at the entrance of the city. That's not going to work. In other cities and towns, you have to have signs on every street, okay? People coming into the city, visiting, maybe coming to visit somebody, they don't know anything about the resident parking program. They're not reading the signs as they're entering into the city. So this is something that is not going to happen right away. It's a plan. We're working on it. I'm working on it with the Traffic Commission, and hopefully I'm looking sort of sometime in the fall. Not that we're not working on it. We're working on it now, but to make this work kind of as smoothly as we can. It's something that's, you know, it has to be done right. It has to be done right. So it's going to take a little bit of time. That's it. The other short-term goals that I have would be to, I'd like to put a parking app. This is a short-term goal. We're getting very close to doing this, that you can actually do with a smartphone. So if you're in the hairdressers, or you're in a barber shop, or anywhere on Broadway, and your meter's running out, if you have that pay app, it's very simple. I've used it myself. I've used it in Boston. You don't have to run out of, if you're at a hairdresser, you don't have to say, oh, geez, I got 15 minutes, I'm going to get a ticket. Go right on the app, pay it. It's simple. It's a convenience, to anybody that uses it. So, and a lot of people want it. A lot of people want that app. And I'm sure you've probably used it yourself, I would think. Sure.
Yeah.
So that was number 2. All right. I have 2 more that I'd like to discuss just briefly. I'd like to, actually, we have a couple of municipal parking lots. One of the biggest one is on Central Ave. Central Ave parking lot is basically not being utilized as nicely as we could utilize it to better basically help with, let's see, I just lost track here in a second, to create more parking spaces available for business and businesses to enhance the vitality of the city. That's a big parking lot. We're not utilizing it the way we can. So that's something that, I'd like to look at maybe in a short-term goal. And last but not least, other cities have actually put into effect a parking benefits district. A parking benefits district, I'm not sure if everybody knows what it is, so if does anybody here know what actually a parking benefits district is, how it works? You take a certain percentage of your meters, whether they're on Broadway, Shirley Ave, and you create an account, and that money can be used to basically utilize in the business districts or the district that it's applied to. You can actually use that money, that meter money, to improve that area. Now, that can be improved in many different ways. These improvements may include acquiring, installing, maintaining, and operating parking meters or other parking enforcement technology, parking enforcement, improvements to the public realm like street trees, curb cuts, and parklets, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure or facilities. You can use them to improve bus shelters, access to public transportation or transit operations, including bus, rapid transit infrastructure, facilities, and technical improvements such as improvements to signal and timing, salaries of parking management personnel, which that it can also be used. So, but so that's pretty much that's the end of that.
Well, thank you for that explanation, Jim. I think you came into a very difficult situation and in a very short period of time. I think you've elevated that department significantly, so.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. If we want to go to page 126, 127,
okay.
And you don't have to go through all those numbers, Jim, 126, 127, and 128. Any councilors have any questions pertaining to any of these numbers? Did you want to speak, Councilor?
Yeah.
Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any specifics on the numbers. They are what they are. I just want to, again, state how happy I am to see this gentleman turn this parking situation around. I knew the quality of the person, and I didn't realize how quickly this parking system was going to turn around. And I want to commend you for your hard work and dedication. And we're lucky to have you. I said that when you got hired, and you've proved me right. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Councilor Zambudo.
Council President Quinasso.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly think that the mayor did the right thing in hiring this man. This guy has been nothing but great since he's put his efforts into correcting a serious situation. But I think there's a very simple solution as to how to identify and inform the public as what's going to take place. There's two very, very important pieces of mail that they get. One is their excise tax bill that comes out once a year, but more importantly, every quarter we send a tax bill. Now, a little disclaimer in those bills, and that notifies everybody that has to be noted.
Right, you know.
So, and for those people who aren't going to be notified in terms of the signage and all that, the outsiders that are coming in and parking there illegally, well, they're going to soon find out that once they get the ticket, they'll only take one, and then they'll make inquiries to why you got the ticket. And so that takes care of all the advertising money. You don't need to go out and advertise all the time. It's a very simple way to do it.
You know, I'm in full agreement with you, Councilor, on a lot of that. We talked actually about rolling it out with the excise taxes. Unfortunately, mixed in with those excise taxes, you also have trucks, vehicles that are leased, rental vehicles that people rent. And in talking to these gentlemen that I've been talking to that do this for a living with these stickers, that all has to be broken down and separated. And that's something that we can't handle in my office. It would be impossible to think that realistically we could handle 34,000. So we're going to have somebody actually do a fulfillment on that. They'll research all that. They'll take they were going to work off that excise tax list. But like he says, it's just not a simple, Jim, to take that.
I think the best
excise
form
list.
is the tax bill myself, because that comes
No,
quarterly.
we're going to go with that. We're going to actually go with that, but they still have to break it down. And that's where he says the time comes in, you know, to break that down and get it out. And they all said educating the public, it's, you know, because it's not, most of these cities and towns that I've talked to, it does not work smoothly. It is.
Of course not. Any change doesn't work.
There's a lot of changes.
But we have to
I
start
agree that
someplace.
it's needed, you know, I totally agree that it's needed. And
Thank
I'm
you.
even seeing a lot of it even moving into our neighborhood where we have multi-cars, even on our street that we live on. There used to be 6 cars on there, you see 16, 17 cars parked on the street now. So with that,
Thank
that's
you,
it.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, again, Jim, I appreciate you being here. I wholeheartedly agree that you can't roll out this program without signage on every street.
Every
really.
street.
You know,
It has to.
I mean, I'm not sure how you could uphold fines if there was no signs there telling people not to park. What are they going to say? You should have saw it on the way into the city?
Yeah,
Just-
you know, we have problems with
That just
signage.
doesn't make any sense to me. And that in and of itself, I think, is going to be a major expense when you start thinking about putting, similar to street sweeping, what we had to do with street sweeping. So it'll be a similar cost. It's going to
Yeah,
be, it's going to be significant. And it's going to take some time.
It's a cost, and it's going to take some time. And
Yep.
that's it, so.
So,
We're working,
but,
we're working on it, and, you know,
Well,
we're doing our
again,
best to implement it, yep.
with the growth rate of the city, with the number of people moving in, with the number of new developments, with all this stuff, it's putting that strain on parking that we already had strained. So
Oh, yeah.
we don't, unfortunately, this is no longer a luxury, it's a mandatory. We really have to do it. And,
Right.
you know, there'll be some positive byproducts, but, you know, we're still going to be dealing with a lot of vehicles, unfortunately. And, you know, I've always said, you know, people want a certain quality of life, and, you know, to not be able to come home and park in front of your house if you don't have any off-street parking, or if you have a number of vehicles that you need to park on the street and not be able to get a spot, there's not much that can be more frustrating than that. So, but anyway, you're doing a tremendous job, Jim.
Yep.
And I appreciate your professionalism and your hard work.
I appreciate it, hearing it from you. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Any other questions?
Appreciate it. Thank you for staying over, too. I know we'd hoped to get out of here by 8 o'clock, so.
Okay. All done, all set. Okay, thank you.
All right,
Everybody
thank
have a
you.
nice night.
We'll try to move along as quickly as we can. Thank you thank you so much, Jim. Dana, thank you for being here. We're on assessors, which is page 43. Dana, if you want to run us through where we're at.
Sure, absolutely. Just to quickly go through some of the accomplishments. We launched and implemented the new Clause 41C.5 senior exemption. We had roughly over 700 applicants, which was a big increase over the prior year under the old program. So I think we made a lot of senior citizens happy and provided them some tax relief, which is a good thing. Of course, every year our biggest goal is to get our values certified, our growth certified, and the tax rate certified through the Department of Revenue. Last year we did that in a very timely fashion. I believe we got it done probably the earliest, in my recollection anyways. We've also been working with CDM Smith, getting GIS mapping updated and as up to date as possible. We completed a data verification program. So we took 4 years and we contacted a third-party vendor to go out and try to list and measure all 15,000 properties, which we're mandated to do under Department of Revenue. So we got that completed, and that helps us to get the most accurate data that we can possible, which gives us the most accurate assessments, that we can get. So looking forward to next year, of course, again, not to repeat myself, but the biggest thing is to get our values and tax rate and growth and everything certified, and try to do that in as timely fashion as we can. Through this body recently, we had the small personal property exemption granted and passed, so we're now going to implement that and roll that program out to the small business owners. Another thing that the administration wanted us to research and look into was possibly rolling out a citywide residential exemption. So we're currently underway researching that right now to see what the effects of that would be. We got probably 12, almost 13,000 residential properties, so we now have to go through each one, verify the ownership, verify the domicile, if they live there, if they don't. Once we go through all of that, we'll be able to put the numbers together and see what the effects of that would be. So basically, that's kind of what we're doing and what we're looking forward to doing. And just to kind of summarize my office and the workload that we've been taking on over the last several years has definitely increased tenfold. As I sat here the last couple hours listening to everybody, it seems like my office kind of branches out into all the other offices. We talked about GIS or Citizen Serve, e-permitting, the Revere Recycle Trash app, all these different things. My database is the source of all that information. So we're kind of getting pulled into all these different new and exciting programs that all these other departments are doing, but it's certainly, impacting us as well.
Well, Dana, you're doing a great job. You don't have to go through all these performance measures or anything, because that'll, I know we're here late, and the council can obviously look at the performance measures. If they have any questions, they can ask once we open up to questions. And with that, if you want to turn to page 45, if the councils want to look at the numbers on page 45, 46, and 47. And if you have any questions for Dana while he's here, feel free to ask. Any councilors have any questions for Chairman of the Board of Assessors? Councilor Zambudo.
Again, I'm sounding like a broken record, but we've got some great department heads, and I just want to congratulate Dana on the work he's done. And we know how hard you work down there, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other councilors have any questions? Dana, I just, obviously, I want to thank you for staying here a little overtime with us. I've always respected the work that you do. You have always represented the city well, and obviously we're happy to have you there.
Thank you.
I'm not going to get into that right now. I noticed that there's one new employee. What was the purpose of the new employee?
Sure. So I guess I try to touch on it a little bit, but really the workload has just been overwhelming with all of the development going on in the city. Having to forecast growth and meet with developers and project out tax implications for that. Again, the 41C&1/2, we went from 70 applications to over 700, and I project that to be even more next year. Possible the residential exemption, which would be 12 or 13,000 applications coming in and different things like that. So with all of that workload, it's really hard for everybody to provide the high level of customer service we want to provide for taxpayers who are coming in the office and still achieve what we have to do, on the back end. So this was really to get a clerk in there to, kind of service the front end of the office, while we can kind of still get the work done that we need to get done. Also, that was a pre-existing position several years ago that we lost back when Ambrosino was here, and we had a budget crunch, and they cut out clerk, several years ago, and we never really recovered from that. So, adding this person kind of gives us a full complement and allows us to give the services that we want to.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I have. So Dana, thank you very much for being here. And, we'll obviously, as I said before, we're going to look through the budget. It doesn't look like anything is jumping out, certainly not at me in your department. So appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
George, I apologize. You're last, but you're not least. But I had to go in order of what was being presented here, so. Okay.
George Anzoni, Director of Finance for the City of Revere. My budget shows all my accomplishments and all my goals. I don't think that can be repeated. One of the biggest goals accomplishments I think we've had this year in my department is, one, we can still collect 99% of your taxes within the fiscal year, which is, compared to other cities in town, is a very high rate. We also turn over tax title before the end of the fiscal year, which allows our financials to look a lot stronger and our adjusted collections look much better. So with that all, I also think that we should mention that the bond rating is one of the highest the city's ever had, and we received a little bit of an upgrade this year on the bond rating because we now have a stable outlook, a positive outlook. So with all of that, I have my budget prepared with a number of people. However, I do want to mention something. I heard one department head up here mention the fact that he had employees who were the best buys in the city. I do, in deference to all the other employees of the city, I have a full respect for them. I think my two assistants are the best buy, my assistant collector and my assistant treasurer, are the best buy the cities could have. Right, Richard? So with all of that, I do want to say that this is the budget as I presented. There are increases. There are increases in health insurance. In my part of this is the workman's comp. I no longer handle workman's comp compensation. That's been given to another department. So I don't have any answers on that. Looking at the health insurance has gone up quite a bit because of our poor experience rate. And that's something you have no control of. You have no control over who gets sick, how long they get sick. And I know it's a hard way to look at it, and you hope nobody ever gets sick. But that's what part of our problem is. We see what the illnesses are. We see what the, I see what the illnesses are. I see what the sadness is. But however, it does, that people are experiencing out there, but it does affect our budget in a negative way. With all of that, we look at the bonded debt. The bonded debt is listed as we have approved, and now we usually go out every April to bond the any ban anticipation notes that we have outstanding. We've just recently done that, had a successful bond sale, sold all our bonds at a nice premium, and the premium was able to pay off any of the costs, and plus pay also some of the principal in the bonded debt. What happened actually is that some of the bond was used for, some of the premium was used to pay off, we didn't have to borrow as much. So that's another accomplishment we have. Saves the city quite a bit of money. Looking at all of it, it's something that, you know, there's other aspects. We have a, I think, again, my accomplishments and my goals are there. Much doing, and I really don't want to repeat that. I don't think it's necessity. I think you've read it. Nobody's self-efficating here, but at the same time is that I'll give you any information you need and answer any questions you have gladly. So if anybody has any questions.
Any councilors have questions for Director of Finance? Any councilors? George, I just have, on page 51, where is all the information? Maybe the auditor can answer this question. Where's all the information for currently budgeted workers' comp medical, workers' comp, where do we find all those numbers?
Sure, that's in the unclassified. Those are the fixed costs of the city, so they're located in, I'll get you the exact page, but those are, we basically follow the UMass accounting system, which classifies all the expenses, and in the past, I guess they were all budgeted under the 100 series, which is general government, but like health insurance, workers' compensation, the FICA tax, and all that stuff.
Right.
Those are classified in the 900 series of the budget. So if you turn to the 900 series, you'll see those budgets. You may recall last year we actually adopted a workers' compensation trust fund. So those revenues and expenses go through the trust fund, and all the bills are paid through that trust fund. But you will see in the 900 series those.
In the 900 series, so can you like point that out for me?
Sure. Hold on one second, please. Debt service starts on page 199, and then most of the fixed costs are in that section here.
Under debt service?
Well, that's for debt service. That's also part of the finance director's budget. And then unclassified starts on page 201. And again, when you look at the budget summary, you'll see that, again, and I apologize, and I understand it's, the target moves sometimes because we do try to create the best budget we could, and when we classify things in different areas, it is difficult to track sometimes, and that's why I try to be here for all the meetings to help navigate that. But the workers' compensation budget in 2018 was budgeted in this 900 series, and then last year and continuing this year, we've adopted a workers' compensation trust fund. And the benefit of having a trust fund is basically general fund appropriations. Once the year is over, they close out. So if there's monies there, it just dumps into the fund balance, and then you have to reappropriate it. The idea of having the workers' compensation trust fund is that that money remains in the trust fund, it accrues interest, and it remains year over year. So, so we try to consider best practice, but we try to set these trust funds up so that these volatile accounts, it's hard to understand what a budget would be properly for a workers' comp. You may have a lot of cases, you may not have many. So those types of budgets are difficult to budget year to year. So there's mechanisms that allow you to set up workers' compensation trust funds, et cetera. So that's why you don't see those numbers there.
Okay, now, so on page 201, under the group health portion, it looks like it's going up by, $1.8 million.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty staggering, and we're doing all we can to try to control them. As George said, we're self-insured. We have a stop-loss policy, but if people are sick, we have to pay the costs. We have some additional employees, as you heard. We've added DPW workers, we've added water and sewer workers, all those particular departments.
So it's self-insuring, right? So, like we self-insure,
We're self-insured,
right? With
yes.
a third-party administrator, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, do we, and I'm assuming we still have stop-loss coverage, don't we?
Yes.
Okay, and that, is that at 500,000? 250,000? Okay. So it just, so just seems like the experience, going from FY18 to FY20, it is staggering. It's like, it's over $4 million increase.
Just to remind, I'm sorry, Judge.
The other part of it is that we had an employee holiday, and this is a result of not having an employee holiday. The trust fund balance needs to be at a certain level. There's something wrong with my mic. Oh, excuse me, that's nice. Thank you. I'll speak into the mic. The trust fund balance needs to be at a certain level, and it wasn't prudent to have it go any lower below that level. And it's at a very strong level, and we want to keep it at the strong level because that's something the financial markets look at. And then again, our experience rate has been very poor because of the fact that the people that we insure have been getting illnesses, and that's something we just cannot control. We are trying to, as Rich was referring to, we are trying to control these costs and looking at different ways of doing it without affecting the, without affecting the employee. The city has a very rich insurance policy for its employees, and there are ways that we can look at saving, and we're trying to look at that. I also, if you noticed, I put in for Monday night a number of communications on the OPEB trust fund. There are ways that gets linked into the health insurance. So all this really revolves around are connected with each other.
How much of this health insurance is attributed to new employees since FY18 to FY20?
That I don't know off the top of my head. How many new employees have we had, Richard, since then?
I would have to get that information, but I also want to just make note of one other thing with this insurance. This also encompasses all the school employees. So what you won't see is the offset on the Schedule 19 for the chargebacks. So as the schools increase their teachers and their staffing, they have to provide for their health insurance costs through Schedule 19. So what you see here is a gross number.
I mean, I know our student population is exploding, but like, I just don't know what the attributable increase could be to
Actually, there's a FTE, if you give me a second, I'll find the FTE count that's in
You
there.
know what, rather than keep everybody here, if you want to just get that information to me so I have it.
It's
or if
it's
you
in the
want-
budget, I was just going to point out where
Oh,
it is.
go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead then, yeah, go ahead.
It's section 1, page 30.
Page 30?
Yeah, in section 1.
Section 1, page 30.
So it does look like from fiscal year 18, the full-time equivalence was 1,176 in 2018, and increased to 1,242 fiscal year 19, and then 1,256 for fiscal year 20. So from last year to this year, it looks like approximately 14 new positions budgeted, and then over 2 years, more than that, but the figures are right there.
So the
for you.
figure in 2018 was, I'm sorry, Richard, can you repeat that?
1,176.
1176, then it went to 1242, then it went to 1256.
Yeah, and that's inclusive of the school department and the general government.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions by councilors for the Director of Finance? George, thank you very much for your explanation. You do a great job up there, and, you know, sorry that however this wound up being last, George, I apologize, but if I jumped somebody, I would have had to deal with them, so,
Okay.
you
I
know.
understand that. Thank
Have
you.
a good night, George.
Everybody have a good night.
All right, thank you. Oh, Ashley, you're last. So she, yeah, poor Ashley, I just discarded her, you know?
You guys did this to me last year, too.
Well, we saved the best for last, Ashley.
I'll be quick.
Be very quick,
So-
Chairman.
So you're page 59.
59. Und- This year, we're actually requesting one new position for my office. This would be for an archivist. We spoke about this at the previous Ways and Means meeting. You're asking about electronic records management. This person I would be overseeing, who would be assisting departments and, getting rid of this massive amounts of paper that the city has, and then we can go ahead and, categorize it and dispose of it, if we can, in accordance with the records retention manual issued by the state. So it's a huge, massive project, but having, one dedicated person on board is a, very cost savings as compared to hiring an outside agency to come in. The cost would just be astronomical, though quicker would be astronomical as compared to having just one employee dedicated for this purpose.
Okay.
Did you want to have me go over any goals or anything, or?
Only if you want to. I think we're familiar with your goals.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You know, what we do in the clerk's office, or issuing, you know, vital records, marriage licenses, dog licenses, business certificates. We've only seen a slight increase over the years, but I did a look back, which didn't make the budget 10 years ago. You can definitely see it increasing with the increase in population that the city's facing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I know the work that gets done down there, and any councilors have anything they like to ask the clerk? Yes. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just excited to hear about that position for the cleaning up of the records. As the chairman mentioned earlier, it's definitely something we have a huge need for in City Hall. And I'm sure your department's one of the more paper-heavy with all of the birth and death and marriage and all the different records that you have. But it's something that globally we need, and I think it's something as counselors we all recognize. But other than that, it's a very lean budget, but I think that's a very well-warranted position, seeing as we're moving everything else in the city in the direction of becoming more technologically advanced. Our website, paying bills online, doing all these things to make us more efficient. And this is the smart next step. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other councilors? Councilor Zambudo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly can't let it go unnoticed, not throwing some bouquets at Ashley, but you were on the council with me when we appointed Ashley as a city clerk, and I think it's probably the best appointment we've ever made. And we went to an extraordinary situation here to file special legislation for tenure, which I was always against. So I had to eat my words, because this is the one person that I truly feel deserves tenure. And so we couldn't be luckier than to have her as our city clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors wishing to be heard? I just want to say, Ashley, you know, it's been a pleasure working with you in all of my roles here in city government. You are all, you know, you're accessible. I think I had to call you on a weekend just recently, and you responded within 5 minutes. Just incredible, and actually were able to accommodate me over a weekend, which you know, that you can't ask for any more than that. So you know, and you know, we know the work that goes on in the city clerk's office, not just managing and helping 11 councilors. It's much more than that. That's probably the easiest part of your job, and that's a lot of work. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you do, and it's great to know that we're bringing imaging and getting into the, really, you know, like despite it coming into the FY 2020 budget, we're getting into the 21st century. So that's, I'm sure, good news for you. And any research I've ever asked you to do, like, you know, regarding motions or anything like that, I don't think I wait more than 20 minutes to get the information. So I just want to thank you for that. And as far as questions to the budget, there's not much to it. So I don't have any questions for the numbers, and just want to again thank you for your service, and thank you to your members of your department that I know are also equally as hardworking. They do a tremendous job as well. So thank you. If there's no further questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I just might, I want to thank the auditor for being here to answer questions on a real-time basis. I think that was a nice way to go through this. So thank you very much.
I agree. It was good to have the auditor here to point out things that maybe the department head didn't have. We don't have to have much follow-up, you know, and you know, it definitely was a great decision that you, I'm assuming, made to spend time with us during these hearings. And we do have one more as we deliberate the budget coming up this coming Monday. I would imagine that you would, and you know, but at that point in time, hopefully we can finalize it. We'll vote it in subcommittee and then put it before the whole council, and then move on to our summer session. So, you know, yeah. Well, thank you very much for your service also. That will conclude tonight's meeting of the Subcommittee on Ways and Means. I want to thank the members of the City Council that are still here, the ones that were here, but certainly the ones that are still here. Wait, that would only be a shot at poor council president. I didn't mean that. So, you know, because he's the only one that, but we did run over, and I'm sure he probably had things to do. So, again, I want to thank the councilors that are here, and Ashley, thank you as always for being here. That'll conclude our meeting on Ways and Means.